If you found out that you're about to be laid off, there are three major things that you need to do and you need to start doing immediately. Stick around and I'm going to tell you what they are. Hey everybody, it's Brian from Life After Layoff, and today I want to talk to you about the three major things that you need to do if you know that you're going to be getting laid off, or maybe you've already been laid off and you're trying to figure out what's next. Being laid off is one of the most stressful things that you can go through. It's going to rank right up there with divorce, with bankruptcy. You really are not going to have a bigger disruption to your life than the uncertainty of not knowing when your next paycheck is coming in. So you're going to be going through job search. You're going to be trying to process what happened, going through the grief process, going through all those different stages of kind of understanding why you are in the situation that you're in. Here's the thing, unfortunately, you are not alone. There are a lot of people right now that are experiencing layoff. In some cases, they're experiencing layoffs for the very first time, and they are never fun to go through. A typical getting back on your feet can take as long as a year, maybe even longer than that. And I'd say the average job search from clients that I've worked with, from personal experience, I'd say is probably between, if you get something in 3 months, you're super lucky. I'd say the average job search is lasting anywhere from 6 months to even a year. Some folks who are in challenging areas or maybe have some challenges on their resume, maybe a little longer than that. In this particular economy and the market that we're in, with COVID being what it is, you're potentially looking at even longer than that. And, with stimulus packages kind of being thrown around and then being pulled and being thrown out again, being pulled, you really can't rely on that to get you through. So there are three major things, in my opinion, that you really need to start thinking about immediately as soon as you learn that you're going to get laid off, or if you've already been laid off. This is stuff to revisit and really kind of get things going. So let's talk about the first one. The first one is pretty obvious. It's going to be getting your house in order. So when I say that, I mean you've got to take stock of where you are in your career, where you're heading, and even looking at the market that you're currently in, where your skill sets align with the rest of the market. In some cases, people have been pretty complacent in their career, come to find out that they've maybe fallen behind in current skill sets versus the external market. And when they go into job search, they start to discover that they're getting a whole lot of rejections because there's a lot of gaps on their resume or in their career. And so it is really worth taking note of where you are in your career and what the current state of the market is. Now, certain industries are going to be pretty tough. So if you're working in manufacturing, you're working in hospitality, a few other ones that are hit hardest by the pandemic and all the stuff that's been kind of going around about it. You really need to start thinking, is there a way to transition into something different? A different industry perhaps, or maybe even how transferable are your skills. It's stuff to start taking note of. So take note of where you are in your career, take note of where the market is in your current local area, and then kind of see if there's any gaps that you need to address. So that would be the first thing that I would suggest you do. As a side note to that, we need to look at the resume. Most people, I talk a lot about this on my channel. I talk a lot about this on my LinkedIn. If you follow me on LinkedIn, I talk a lot about this as well. Most people's resumes are really bad or struggle or are at the very best average. I'm a corporate recruiter. I've hired or looked at tens of thousands of resumes and hired thousands of people into some of the world's most well-known companies over the course of my career. And resumes are, if you're not getting any interviews, it's because your resume is bad. And it's assuming that you are meeting the requirements of the positions that you're applying to. But if you are not getting any phone calls or getting very few phone calls, it's almost always a resume issue. So it's worth taking note of where your resume is in relation to where you need to be. If you are not sure of where your resume is, I actually do have a course called Resume Rocket Fuel that will help you learn how to. So I think I hit my recorder here, so sorry about that noise. But if you are not sure where you are in your career, or if you're not sure where your resume stacks up in your career, it's worth taking a look at. Either you can look at hiring a resume writer. I actually recommend that you look at this training instead, because it is going to be A, cheaper, and B, it's going to give you a life skill that you'll be able to apply continually. And it's written by a recruiter, which is the most important thing. So I actually teach you how to write a resume that is going to actually get recruiters to notice you, which is kind of the goal, right? So your purpose of your resume is just to get noticed by a recruiter, get your first interview. That's the only purpose your resume serves. So take note of your resume. If you're interested in that course, I'm not going to pitch it very hard here, but if you're interested in the course, I will leave a link below. It's something that just to take note of. Check out. It's a really awesome course. It actually gives you templates and walks you through exactly how to write a resume that's going to get through an ATS system and a recruiter. But enough of that. So the next thing that you need to look at is the condition of your networks, because the network is going to be a crucial part of your job search strategy as well. There are different layers of networks that are what you should take into account. Something to think about there is the strength of your social media presence, particularly LinkedIn, but the social media presence. And then the second thing would be your professional network, so your in-person professional networks, and then you'd also want to look at your even your personal network, so people maybe you went to church with, or in your local community, maybe it's in like your neighborhood, people that can potentially help you. So take a look at your networks and see where you are with those. If you're lacking on any of those, that's stuff to focus on. And then again, we talked about the social media. If you're not on LinkedIn or you don't really use it, you got to get on there. So make sure you get all those three things in order. If you need actually I have a 5-day boot camp that I'm about to launch. I'm going to leave a link probably maybe at the time that you're watching this. It'll already be in the bio. Once I get it launched, I'm going to put it in the bio. I'm actually developing it right now. It's going to be a 5-day boot camp to help you get through all this stuff. It's going to be free, so definitely check that out. And then, so that's going to be the first thing. Get your house in order, because you need to get if you've not dusted off any of this stuff and you've been working for quite a while and all of a sudden you find yourself in a layoff situation, you're going to need to hit the ground running as fast as possible. So all of these tools are going to be necessary. Most people who struggle in their job search are going to gap on some of this stuff, in particular resumes, and in particular taking note of where they are in their career, because they can't sell themselves in an interview. So you might find some frustration if you are not kind of honed in there. So take care of your house. The second major thing that I want to talk about if you find yourself unemployed is looking at your budget. Now, if you've never budgeted before, I know this kind of sounds like, oh, here we go, budgeting, but it's a really important aspect, especially when you are just laid off. Now, most people who've kind of gotten high on the fat on the farm, or high on the hog, or whatever you want to call it, they've been working for years, and then it's just like your income keeps going up, or it's stable. You start adding in little subscriptions, services here. Maybe you get an expensive car payment there. You're not really watching what you're spending on clothing and food, and you're going out to dinner 3 times a week at expensive restaurants and not thinking twice of it. And then all of a sudden, you don't track your budget very closely. You just kind of make sure that you still got more money in your bank account, because there's always money coming in from that job. Suddenly, you are now needing to really focus on that, right? So all of a sudden, if you're only bringing in half or less than half of what you were earning before on unemployment, something's got to give. So you obviously want to make sure that you've got that 6 month. Everybody knows about the 6 month emergency stash. You want to make sure that you've got that, but you also want to start looking very closely at the line items on your budget. Go through line by line, take a list, write them all out, and start looking at where you are on your budget, and you'll start to notice a lot of wasteful spending. There's a ton of wasteful spending that you're going to be probably looking at, and each dollar that you can cut out of your budget, you can think of that directly as income. So if you save $1, you cut $1 out of your budget, you're actually earning that dollar now. It's a dollar that you didn't have in your bank account, right? So it's going to be something that you really want to start really seriously looking at. My wife and I went through an exercise. We knew she was going to be coming out of the workforce, and so we actually went through a very detailed budget process that I'm kind of describing here, and we sat down and listed out everything. I actually put together some spreadsheets, and we went through and identified like 20 different things that we could cut, and we actually killed our budget. We went from having a very bloated budget down to we cut nearly $2,000 out of our budget just by doing stuff that. And here's the thing: is our lifestyle, had it been was it impacted by that? Yeah, of course, you're not gonna be going and doing frivolous spending. It's like kind of a mentality change, but the day to day was not a huge difference. It required changing habits, and people kind of get into habits, and it's like that 30 days to build a new habit. You got to keep doing something over and over again. But once you start establishing these new habits, you actually become very budget conscious, even though you won't feel cheap. So you don't have to. Budgeting doesn't mean being cheap. It just means that you are sticking to it and adhering to a budget and making smart decisions. When you are unemployed, you absolutely have to make smart decisions with your money. It's not sustainable to continue to spend like you were making $100,000 plus a year. So you've got to cut that budget down. And in some cases, it might mean even making pretty hard decisions. I mean, I know some people that have actually had to sell cars because they had such bloated car payments. Because I mean, who can afford $600, $700, $800 a month in car payments? I mean, that's fortunately one thing that I've not done. Maybe I am cheap in that regard, but I still drive the same car that's been paid off for 5 years, and same with my wife. So there might be some hard decisions to make. You really, it's easy to start creeping your budget. I call it budget creep. You start getting little expenses that start stacking up, and before you know it, you're wasting hundreds of dollars. So each year it's worth going through and doing another round of budgeting, looking at where the budget creep is coming in, trying to get rid of some of that stuff. Because each dollar that you save is going to be a dollar earned. I know that's, Benjamin Franklin maybe said that. But each dollar saved is indeed a dollar earned, so you can think of it as an income directly. So that's the second major thing, budgeting. The third major thing is you need to start thinking seriously about establishing multiple streams of income. Multiple streams of income are going to be crucial to you getting into a layoff-free lifestyle where you no longer have to work on it. If you're like a vast majority of people, you rely on a single income, or maybe you have two income family, but it's two incomes in order to pay or sustain yourself. So if something happens to those incomes or one of those incomes, you are in dire straits. As far as if you have a spouse that makes a significant amount as well, then that also helps. Of course, that's a second income, so that you've got some protection there. But you really need to start thinking about developing those multiple streams of income if you haven't done it already. And passive income is the best because you don't have to work actively at it. But there are a lot of things that you can do in order to start building those passive streams of income, or even an active stream of income if you want. But you really need to start focusing energy and time on identifying things that you can do to bring in multiple streams. And I would, if you have say you have a $5,000 a month monthly expenses that you need to cover in order to just survive, and factoring in you've got to pay now your own insurance and all of that stuff. If you need that $5,000, I like to see at least 3 or maybe 4 different components that can cover that $5,000. I know it's a lot, but there are ways to do that. Or at least you can match that $5,000, whether it's through income A, income B, or a combination of income C, D, E, and F, that all combine to make you that $5,000. So you have 3 different ways that you could cover your monthly expenses. That way, if something happens to a main expense, you're not, you get laid off, so now you lose your biggest income, and you still have 2 other ways that you can cover your monthly. Now you're not in a situation where you have to take the first job that comes your way, that you are settling for working for a crappy employer because you're desperate, because you come from a defensive posture in that regard. So when you have multiple streams of income coming in, then you are much more in the driver's seat, you're much more protected, and you can weather the storm a lot more. And the best streams of income are recession-proof and they're passive. And there are a lot of different ideas. I actually talk a lot about that on my website. It's a Life After Layoff. I'm going to be doing a lot more blogging about multiple streams because it's really something that I feel very strongly about. You should look at yourself in your career as a free agent, right? A company is going to lay you off as soon as things get bad. And that's just the fact. That's probably why you're here watching this video. Or if you aren't laid off yet, you better prepare for it. If you're not laid off yet, you actually have an advantage because you can start putting together all these things and it's not being paranoid, more so it's being responsible. So if you can start building up multiple streams of income, getting your budget in check and making sure that you got all those things together, you're going to find yourself in a much stronger position if you happen to get laid off. Nobody expects to get laid off. Most of the people who are in this situation now during a COVID crisis probably have found themselves pretty blindsided by it. And so now you're kind of playing catch up or playing from behind. So treat your career like you are, treat your finances like you are a free agent. Actively go out and improve yourself, diversify your income streams or income sources. Make sure that you got your house in order with your resume, your network, and all of that kind of stuff, because you're going to need all those things if you become laid off, you're going to need all those things. So those are the three major categories: get your house in order, budgeting, and multiple streams of income that I wanted to talk about today. I'm going to go into a lot more detail on this stuff in future videos and on my website. So again, if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you hit the subscribe button. We're going to be bringing a lot more content out. I'm going to be talking specifically about some ideas for multiple streams of income and budgeting, so you're not going to want to miss that. If you, again, if I've got the training courses, the resume rocket fuel for those of you who are struggling with your resume, just not getting phone calls, really awesome. And I'm not aware of any other course that even covers this stuff from that perspective. It's all from a recruiter's perspective. So you're getting literally a direct insider telling you how to get a job. And that's also through another course that I have called the Ultimate Layoff Bootcamp, which is actually takes you from cradle to grave, from how to get into the interviewing process, how to get through each step of the interviewing process, and ultimately how to land the dream job so that you can get the offer and then get off of this. And then now you still are going to be working on budgeting, establishing multiple streams, and getting your house in order. So if you're interested in getting more information about that, there's a link below for those courses. Again, I'm going to have that 5-day boot camp coming out pretty soon, at least as of recording this. It should be there, or at least I will be adding that link whenever I add it. I'm hoping to get it done here fairly shortly. And make sure you hit the like, subscribe button, and I will see you on the next one.